Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming today. For those of you who are new, thank you for hanging out through 2 minutes of Tibetan. That's kind of intense to do those prayers the first time, if it's the first time you've done them, but it helps to get us into the right mind space in order to be able to really take in the teachings and absorb them and utilize them. And it helps me get into the right mind space that I can talk coherently. So that's helpful for all of us. So before we begin, let's take a moment to generate compassion and set our intention. We're here today to learn about the Dharma, not just for our own entertainment, but we're here to learn about the Dharma so that we can bring benefit to ourselves and others, and ultimately so that we can end suffering for all beings. So let's just take a moment to focus on that intention. All right. So picking up from our last class, we are going to continue talking about the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to Dharma. The 4 thoughts that turn the mind are called the common foundation because they're common to all of the Buddhist traditions. Contemplating these 4 thoughts is a traditional method for preparing ourselves to practice the Dharma. So the contemplation of these 4 thoughts upholds our spiritual practice, just like a foundation sustains a building and keeps it stable. If you build a skyscraper on a shaky foundation, it's not going to stay up very long. And similarly, if the foundation of your spiritual practice is shaky, fair weather motivation, then your spiritual skyscraper is not going to stay standing. You'll easily become distracted or discouraged by any little thing that comes up. But if you lay a strong, If you lay a strong, solid foundation of unshakable motivation, you really know why you're practicing and you have a solid motivation, a solid foundation, then that spiritual skyscraper will stay standing for a very long time. You'll be able to build it very tall. So to build that solid foundation, we contemplate the 4 thoughts that turn the mind. The first thought is the freedom and opportunity of our precious human rebirth and the difficulty of obtaining it. The second thought is on death and impermanence. The third thought is the law of karma, or cause and effect, action and result. And the 4th thought is the suffering that pervades all cyclic existence. So why do we say that these thoughts turn the mind? And what is it about these thoughts that would turn our mind? Or what does that mean? Gyaltrul says that if you have found a path that you are certain will lead to supreme enlightenment, you've checked out this path and you can see that it produces enlightenment and it continues to produce enlightenment in a way that is visible, predictable, and reportable. If you've found that path, then you can ask yourself, am I able to maintain this path with diligence? Or am I easily knocked away by any distraction or discouragement? Am I easily swept off of that path or forget about it? Are you able to maintain that path in a sustainable way, an even keel way, not swinging back and forth like a pendulum swing, which a lot of meditators do? Regardless of your circumstances, whether life is sunny or stormy, are you able to remain firm on that path? Gyaltrul says, when you find this path and it becomes a central focus in your life, in times of both joy and fear, is the path always the answer to your problems? But most of all, you should look to see whether you are certain enough about the path to have it be your source of refuge. Is it the thing you turn to? And do you consistently practice it every day? If all these factors have been met, then your mind has been turned. In the last few classes, we've talked about the first thought, precious human rebirth, and death and impermanence. Today we're going to discuss the third thought of karma, or cause and effect. Lots of phone calls going on right now. Someone's on a group text or something. The cavalry's coming, I think. The power of karma. Everyone has the karma to get a phone call right now. So do you ever wonder why things happen the way they do? You know, like, why were we each born in the country we were born in? I was born in Washington, D.C. Why not Wellington, New Zealand? Why not Kampala or Cairo or Kathmandu? Why wasn't I born in any of those places? Why Washington, D.C.? Why were we born to the parents that we have and in the families that we have? Why are some of us born rich and some of us born poor? Why do some people work their whole lives, like working their tail to the bone, and they stay poor all their lives, while other people might do practically nothing? They trip and they make money. Like, it's just, you know, like, why does that happen to some people? And out of all the people that play the lottery, why does that one person win? Why isn't it me? Why didn't I win the lottery? Why do, you know, when the flu goes around and we have flu season, why do some people die and other people heal quickly and it's not more than an inconvenience? Sometimes people in decent health can die of the flu. It's just they develop a complication. Why do small, innocent children suffer? Why do small, innocent children sometimes come down with terrible diseases or die young? Often people return from war wondering, why did my buddy die and not me? We were both there when that bomb went off. Why did he die and not me? There are so many stories of people who missed their flights on 9/11, and they overslept or got caught in traffic or something and missed their flight, luckiest day of their life. And they wonder, why me? Why was I not on that flight? Why was I spared? There's so many things that happen in the world like this, just stuff where you're like, why did that happen? Why am I getting my dream job, or why am I not able to find a job? You know, any situation that happens, why is it turning out that way? Chagdog Tuku tells the story of a woman he knew who had miscarriage after miscarriage. She had 13 miscarriages in all. And the 14th time that she got pregnant, her doctor became very concerned for her. He was worried for her health. He was worried that she would miscarry again. And so he prescribed her some pills to take to end the pregnancy. So she took the pills home and she put them in her medicine cabinet. And the next day, she had to take them with food or whatever. So the next day she has her breakfast and she takes out the pills and she takes them. And they don't work. It turns out she took the wrong pills. And 9 months later, she gave birth to a healthy baby. So the first 13 babies didn't have the karma to come into the world. Nothing could have brought them here because they didn't have the karma to be born. But the 14th one, nothing could stop that child from being born because that was its karma. Another example is in 1998, I don't know if anyone here remembers this, but in 1998, 66,000 people attended the Tibetan Freedom Concert at RFK Stadium. During the concert, lightning struck one woman named Lisa. 66,000 people, and lucky Lisa gets struck by lightning. 12 others were injured, but Lisa suffered the worst injuries because her underwire bra channeled the electricity into her heart and caused cardiac arrest. Pretty terrible. 66,000 people, and Lisa's having the worst day of her life. Luckily, a trauma paramedic and a surgical resident were seated just 10 rows away, and they saw this happen. They saw the lightning strike. They were just 10 rows away, so they started just climbing over the stadium seats to get to Lisa, and they started CPR. And they couldn't get a pulse in the first few minutes, and so they had to move her to the medical dugout. But luckily, that was right below the section that she was seated in. Because all of these conditions came together, they were able to get her heart started in time before any, lasting brain damage set in. So Lisa was darn lucky to have a doctor, a trauma tech, medical staff, and to be located right next to the medical dugout in the event that she got struck by lightning. If it's gonna happen, that's like the best of circumstances. So afterwards, the surgical resident said that no one knows what would have happened if Lisa had been seated on the other side of the stadium. She might not have received help in time. Out of 66,000 people, why was Lisa the one that got struck by lightning? And why was Lisa able to receive the help that she needed in that moment? Lisa had the karma to be struck by lightning, but the other people in that stadium did not. And that's pretty much it. She also had the karma to receive the medical care that she needed at that time. That karma happened to arise at the right moment. So even though she had the karma to be struck by lightning, she also had created the causes in the past by helping others so that others were able to help her in her time of need. Sorry, I have like a stiff neck and it's just zinging me sometimes. So karma accounts for everything that happens, good or bad. When the average person thinks of Buddhism, karma is probably the first thing that comes to mind. Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche says that karma is usually understood as a moralistic system of retribution, bad karma and good karma. But karma is simply a law of cause and effect, not to be confused with morality or ethics. No one, including Buddha, set the fundamental bar for what is negative and what is positive. Karma is not a law in the legislative sense. It's not like Congress got together and passed a law, and now if you break that law, you're going to go to jail or be fined. The Buddhists didn't come together and write these laws. There were no committee meetings. It's not like the Buddhas imposed this law or enforce it through reward and punishment. Karma is not a law like that. Khenpo Tenzin Norgay says, karma is the law of nature, the law of cause and effect. It is the unavoidable reality of the universe. Karma is just a way of expressing how our mind functions. If our mind has the tendency to harm other sentient beings, for example, that is a negative state of mind. With that negative state of mind, you do actions, either through body, speech, or mind, to harm someone, and those actions result in negative karma. Similarly, if your mind has the tendency to help other sentient beings, and with that positive state of mind, you do actions with your body, speech, or mind to help others, those actions result in positive karma. If you imagine a seagull perched on a rock, you imagine the shadow he casts on that rock. When the seagull flies away, he thinks he's left his shadow behind. He thinks he doesn't have a shadow. But when he lands, there it is again. There's his shadow. In the same way, the effects of our actions follow us, like our shadow, even if we don't realize it. And to be honest, we usually don't realize what we're doing and the shadows that we're creating, but they will follow us nevertheless. Chagda Tuku says, a single seed will produce a whole tree with many branches, flowers, and fruit, and each fruit will contain even more seeds. The smallest seed of anger will produce great suffering for ourselves and others. By the same token, even a small act of generosity or compassion will produce great happiness. We usually don't know what will come from the seeds we sow. They lie dormant in the mind for a long time, and when they finally begin to sprout, we have forgotten having planted them at all. Eventually, though, they will bear fruit. So you can think of it this way. You can imagine that sometime in the past, you wrote down every one of your thoughts. Happy, sad, angry, compassionate, every single thought that swirls through your mind. You wrote that down, a whole big book of every thought in your mind. A very, very large book. And 50 years later, you find that book in the attic and you start to read it. And it was so long ago that you wrote this, you don't remember it at all. It's as if a stranger had written it. It's like, have you ever found an old diary somewhere? And it's kind of like that. You're like, what happens next? Wow. So you're reading this book and you just become totally absorbed. You laugh at the funny parts and you cry at the sad parts. Chagda Tuku says, in the same way, we experience now what we have written karmically with our past thoughts, words, and actions. Just as we are both the writer and reader of our book, we create our karma and experience its fruits. Having forgotten the karmic tale we wrote, we may feel victimized, wishing to escape from our drama. But only by purifying our karma can we change the storyline. Almost every religion teaches that if we're good, then our future experience will be positive, and that if we're bad and we harm others, our future experience will be negative. In the Buddhist tradition, there are a number of stops on the journey. It's a little bit, the potential results are more complex than the black and white result of going to the good place or the bad place. The results are a little bit more nuanced, and so the lessons on that are a little bit more nuanced. Jogdog Tuku says, according to the nature of our actions, we cycle through lifetimes of happiness, unhappiness, or a mixture of both. This goes on and on until we transform the mind and awaken to enlightenment. No matter what your spiritual path may be, if you refrain from harming and try to help others, your future experience and that of those around you will improve. Not harming others is like not drinking poison. Helping others is like taking medicine. But how does karma work? Like, how does it work, right? How does you do something and then how does it come back around to you? There's actually a whole science to this. And the full ripening of a karmic act involves 4 steps. In the case of killing, the first step would be identifying the object, the being we want to kill. So let's say a mosquito has landed on our arm, and we've identified that we want to kill that mosquito. So the mosquito's landed on our arm, we identify it. The second step is formulating the intention to kill. We think, that mosquito's bitten me for the last time, it's got to go. And the third step is the murderous action, actually slapping the mosquito. The fourth step is the result, that the mosquito dies. The process works the same way if the action is virtuous. First, you identify the object, the being you wish to benefit. Let's say a lost dog that we found in the road. The second step is formulating the intention. We decide we want to help this dog. The third step is actually helping the dog, maybe giving it some water and calling its owner. And then the fourth step is the result. The dog is now happy and safe from harm. He made it home safe. If you don't complete all 4 of those steps, then the result is lessened. So if you identify an enemy and you have the intention to kill him, and you try as hard as you can to kill him, but you fail, then only 3 steps are involved. Or if you accidentally step on a bug, there's only 2 steps involved. You didn't identify the object to be killed, and you didn't develop an intention to kill that bug. It just happened. And so you still have the third step of squashing the bug, and the fourth step, which is its death. So the repercussions in these cases are much less severe than if all 4 steps are involved. Any act that includes all 4 steps produces a fully ripened result. In the case of a murder motivated by anger or desire, the fully ripened result would be a rebirth in the hell realms. After that result comes experiences similar to the cause, in which the murderer spends 500 lifetimes as a human with a very short lifespan, And in each lifetime, he's killed in a way similar to the way that he killed in the past. After those 500 lifetimes, then comes the experience of actions similar to the cause, in which the momentum of the murderer's karma manifests as a habitual or behavioral pattern to kill. So to kill and to harm others. So as a child, he may bully and abuse the other children in his class. He may hurt small animals. He's like continuing to play out that habitual pattern of harming others. And then lastly, there is the conditioning result. The murderer is reborn in an environment, such as a place with extremely harsh conditions. And that environment reflects the mental poison of anger or desire that caused that harmful action. You don't have to know what you've done to experience the effects of your actions. We sow seeds all the time without knowing what they will produce. But whether you do or don't know that what you did was wrong, you're still going to experience the repercussions of your actions. People often joke about instant karma, but it's actually pretty rare. People usually think that, karma, maybe you commit a crime and then, the police aren't chasing you right away, so you think you got away with it. But that's not the case. They could find you 50 years later, 100 years later, and no matter, even if they don't, your karma still will. So, you think that the result of your action will come immediately, like when you shoot a gun and you shoot the gun, immediately there's a result. The bullet hits something, and it's so fast. But karma doesn't usually happen that way. Karma usually ripens over the course of many lifetimes. And because most of us can't remember our past lifetimes, it can be really difficult to connect the dots between our past actions and our current experiences. There was a great Lama in Tibet who was in ill health for more than 20 years. And his meditative ability was such that he could remember a past life in which he had shot a musk deer for its scent glands, because they're used to make incense. He knew that his ill health in this life was a consequence of killing that deer in his past life. But most of us don't have a clue how we created the experiences that we're having now. In order for karma to ripen, there has to be both cause and conditions. The cause is the action, the karmic seed we've planted. And the conditions are like the sun, soil, and water that determine whether the ripening will take place in one lifetime or another. Chagdao Tuku says, any seed we have planted will lie dormant until the circumstances are right. The karma we have accumulated over lifetimes is like a mountain of seeds waiting for the right conditions to grow. Everything that we experience in our lives, every joy, every sorrow, sprouts from the karmic seeds that we have planted in the past, which have now been provided the right conditions to grow. We may have planted these seeds a very long time ago, but in our current circumstances, the conditions are there for those seeds to sprout. However, we still have the ability to determine our future experiences. This isn't like a fatalistic situation where we've just set ourselves up and this is what we've created and we're stuck with it. It's not fatalistic like that. You can't escape the consequences of your past actions, but by understanding how karma works, you can change its course. As our present karma ripens, we react to it. And in reacting to it, we make more karma. And the karma we create will be either negative or positive or mixed, depending on how we react. The only way to break this cycle of perpetual action and reaction is to make different choices. And in order to make better choices, we need to know what to do and what not to do. And you know how nowadays there's an app for everything? In Buddhism, there's a list for everything. So we have a list for this. It really is a list for everything. Our list today are the 10 non-virtues and 10 virtues. There are 10 non-virtues which have corresponding virtues. The virtuous acts create positive karma, and the negative acts create negative karma. There are 3 non-virtues of body, 4 non-virtues of speech, and 3 non-virtues of the mind. The physical non-virtues are killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. We'll go starting with the first one, killing. We can kill out of anger, we can kill out of desire, or we might kill out of a simple lack of consideration for life, like when you're sweeping the floor and you just sweep up a bug without much care about it and it dies. Yeah, it's sad. The karmic consequences are more severe and long-lasting if we act out of desire, and they're even more severe if we act out of anger. The second physical non-virtue is stealing, which means taking anything not given to us. Truly anything. It's not like where there's like grand theft and, larceny and these different levels depending on whether it was something, if you stole something expensive or stole something cheap. It doesn't totally matter. It matters more about your motivation and the fact that you are stealing something that doesn't belong to you. Like, how many times have you stolen a pen? All of us steal pens, like countless, like every day, right? Like all the time. You go to a restaurant, you sign the receipt, you pocket the pen, you don't even think about it. And it doesn't seem like a big deal, and no one's going to begrudge you that. They're going to say, don't worry about it. But if it's not yours and you weren't given it, it's stealing. There's a retreat in upstate New York that happens every summer, and Ajahn Tuku was teaching there one time, and he really made a point of this, of the pen stealing. I think he had been working in the office and kept seeing people walk out with their pens. So when my husband and I went to vote last fall, and we walked out of the voting booths, and my husband's like, "Oh, I grabbed the pen. I forgot." I was like, "Well, we are marching right back in that building and handing it back." And we walked all the way back, and they looked at us like we were crazy. We walked in, we're like, "Sorry, we stole your pen," and they're like, "Who cares?" But it does matter. It's about the action and about that habit. There's a number of ways that we can steal. Stealing also includes taking something against someone's will or taking something behind someone's back. It can include overpricing an item or convincing someone that something is worth more than it is. Exaggerating the quality or quantity of something, or if you accept payment for services based on a misrepresentation of your qualifications, that would be stealing as well. The third physical non-virtue is sexual misconduct, which includes breaking commitments, such as a monk or nun's vow of celibacy, or if you're a lay person, it would include breaking your commitment to your partner. It also includes any kind of sexual activity that harms another, like with someone who's underage or against a person's will, or interfering in someone else's relationship, such as encouraging someone to break their commitments to their partner. The non-virtues of speech are lying, slander, harsh speech, and gossip. Lying is the first one. It is a non-virtue to lie or to lead someone to believe something that isn't true. So don't spread fake news. It's especially serious to claim to be something that you're not, and especially if someone is relying on you. So if you were to claim to be a doctor, and other people then are relying on you, that's a big problem. That would have very negative repercussions, because you would not be able to help them. Slander includes causing divisions among friends, and it's especially non-virtuous to cause divisions within the spiritual community. The community of spiritual practitioners, or the Sangha, are bound by a sacred commitment to respect and support each other. And breaking that commitment and causing divisions within that community is especially awful to do. Harsh speech includes yelling and cursing, as well as pointing out someone's faults in a way that hurts their feelings, or in a way that exposes their shortcomings to others. There's that old rhyme, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. But it's not true. Words do hurt. And they can be very cutting, and they have the power to cause tremendous mental anguish. And so it's very important that we're mindful of the ways in which we use our words. And lastly, there's gossip, which refers to any useless speech. It includes spreading rumors, but it also includes mindless babbling that distracts people and wastes everyone's time. It's especially non-virtuous if one's useless speech keeps someone from spiritual practice or distracts them from recognizing their true nature. So that's one of the reasons why it's so important to be mindful of our speech when we're in this room. There's a prayer vigil that goes on in this room 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So there's always someone praying here. And then, after a teaching or after some practice, we all want to just hang out and chat and be loud and boisterous and enjoy each other's company, and someone's over in the corner trying to pray and we're distracting them. And that's not good. It's really not a good thing to distract people from their practice. And the phone rings on cue. Something to be mindful of too, I know when people change people take 2-hour shifts on this prayer vigil, and so there's the possibility that the person who's taking the shift after you haven't seen for a while, and you might want to chat with them or let them know about something, and you're not praying when you do that. So engaging in conversation then is distracting both of you from what you're here to do, which is to pray. Lastly, there are the 3 non-virtues of mind. The first of those is covetousness, which is to wish that someone else's good fortune were your own. Then there's harmful thought, which includes rejoicing in the misfortune of others or wishing harm on others. And this is one which I see, people think, I would never wish harm on others. But then, I remember when Osama bin Laden was killed, when there was an announcement made, we got Osama bin Laden, and he was killed. And so many people rejoiced. So many people that would say, I'm a really good person, and I would never wish harm on others, said, yeah, he died. Yay, we got him. And while it's a positive thing that he would not be able to continue to create harm, rejoicing in death is never a positive thing to do. And wishing others harm, no matter what they've done or how awful they are, even if you really, really think someone is just the worst person in the world or the worst leader in the world, and people are in politics, it really exposes them to a lot of our opinions about, what should happen to them. And wishing harm on others is never a good thing. And I think if we're honest, we would find that we do wish harm on others more often than we think we do. The last non-virtue of the mind is wrong view. An example of wrong view would be thinking that virtue is non-virtuous, or thinking that killing is good. Those things are, those kinds of ideas are contrary to what the Buddha taught. They're contrary to the way things work, and so they're wrong views. Each non-virtue has a corresponding virtue. So instead of taking life, we can save life. Instead of stealing, we can give. We can uphold our commitments regarding sexual conduct. Other ways of creating virtue with the body include making prostrations, circumambulating stupas, making offerings to the Buddhas, and building temples, building statues, building stupas. All of these things create virtue with our body. And with our speech, we can be honest and gentle with our speech. We can use our speech to create unity and harmony. You can also print scriptures or sponsor the printing of scriptures. You can use your speech to chant mantra or to read spiritual texts aloud. There's great benefit in reading spiritual texts aloud. There was once a great scholar living in India. He used to recite a particular text over and over again. And one day, midway through his recitation, a baby bird, he was in a nest right outside of his window. This baby bird flew out of the nest and was killed by a hawk. The baby bird was then reborn as the son of a king in another country. And as a very, very small child, he started reciting the first half of the scripture. And then the young prince started asking, "Where's my lama? He can teach me the other half." And so the king made some inquiries, and he located a scholar in India who was known for reciting this particular scripture. And the prince traveled to India, and when he met the scholar, he immediately recognized him, and he was like, "My lama, I'm so happy to have found you." So just by having heard half of the scripture, the baby bird was reborn as a human who could remember his previous life and thus find his teacher and study with him. Eventually, this prince, formerly known as the baby bird, became a great scholar himself, and that all came from this one scholar just reading a text aloud, and so much benefit came of it. So you might think that you're alone, like, oh, there's not much use muttering to myself, but you have no idea what little critters are living around you, what little spiders you might be liberating when you read something out loud. So then with our mind, we can create virtue too. When others have beautiful things or enjoy great success, we can rejoice in their happiness and good fortune instead of coveting those things for ourselves. Instead of mentally wishing harm on others, we can think kind and loving thoughts. And to counter wrong view, we can develop a clear understanding of and appreciation for spiritual truths. Another way to create virtue through the mind is to build stupas, which are structures that represent the enlightened mind. And to accumulate virtue with body, speech, and mind simultaneously, the really quick way, this is the ultimate efficiency here, all three at once, 3 for 1. Gyaltrul Rinpoche says, one can build monasteries and temples, places where practitioners can take refuge in the Lama, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Environments where practitioners can actually practice the Dharma and accumulate merit. We actually have an excellent opportunity to do this right now. As you may have heard, we are currently running a capital campaign to build a new temple. This building is old and decrepit, and it is literally falling down around us. So we are fundraising to build a new temple, which will accommodate even more people. Currently, this room is doubling as both our prayer room and our teaching hall. We used to use, there's a room right out there that we used to use as our teaching hall. But currently, we are limited to this one room because the rest of the building does not meet fire codes currently and is not safe for public use. And so we're limited to this one room. It's both our teaching hall and our prayer room, and it fits about 100 people max. So really limits the ability for people to come here and engage in the Dharma. But the new teaching hall will be able to accommodate like 400 people. That's a lot. And there'll be residences for the visiting teachers and for some of the ordained. There'll be spaces for children's programs and for our teaching archives. Taking part in that capital campaign, either donating it to it or volunteering, is literally one of the best karmic opportunities we could ever hope for. The merit of participating in this kind of project is inexpressible, especially because of the way that group karma works. His Holiness Penor Rinpoche says, when a group of 100 people kill an animal and enjoy the meat together, all those 100 people will bear the same karmic result arising from killing the animal. The same goes for warfare. The karmic result of killing the enemy extends to the entire army. The karma isn't divided up and shared among them so that each is relieved of some of the karma and just bears a small amount of responsibility. But rather, each soldier bears the full result of killing each and every person. This also applies to virtuous actions. When we do prayers together, each one of us accrues the merit. For example, when we accumulate 1 million Mani mantras, each practitioner gets the same amount of merit. So then if we think of participating in something like this capital campaign to create a temple that will help so many sentient beings, and really limitless sentient beings if we think about this, in addition to the 400 people that could fit in the teaching hall and anyone else that could come at any time of day or night. There's also all of the little spiders and bugs and birds and all of that who will hear the mantras and hear the teachings being recited and will thus also benefit. So there's countless ways that that action will ripple outwards. And so many of us are participating in making that happen. We have to raise $10 million to make that happen. And so many people are going to need to take part to do that. And each of those people are going to do beneficial actions to contribute towards that larger goal. And when we also contribute, we reap the benefit of all of those people's beneficial actions going towards that goal. So it's really limitless the way that participating in that can help. So when we talk about virtue and non-virtue, according to the Hinayana vehicle, there are 3 different vehicles of Buddhism, or which are basic schools of thought, the Hinayana, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. And when we talk about virtue and non-virtue, according to the Hinayana tradition, we can think that the actions of our body, speech, and mind that harm others are negative, and the actions that help others are positive. Khenpo Norgay says that when we practice Mahayana, everything is upgraded. Our view is upgraded, and our positive and negative actions are upgraded. In the Mahayana, any action motivated by desire, anger, or ignorance is negative. So even if we seem all smiley and nice on the surface, if underneath we're seething and we're feeling really resentful towards this person, then that becomes a negative action. A lot of times we're not totally aware of our intentions as well. We may have mixed intentions. And so we may kind of want to help someone, but we also kind of don't. And then in that case, it has a mixed result. So if our underlying motivation is one of the 3 poisons, hatred, any of the 5 poisons, hatred, greed, ignorance, jealousy, or pride, then that will be a negative action. But if it's not motivated by one of those, it will be a positive action, no matter how it looks on the surface. So to give an example of this, there's a story of, there once was a man who created satsas, which are these small little clay figurines that represent the mind of enlightenment. So one day this man carefully placed a satsa by the roadside to bless the pedestrians that passed by. So he left the satsa on the road and walked away. And later another man came along and he saw that rain was hitting the satsa. And he thought, oh no, this satsa has been carelessly left out in the rain and now it's going to get ruined. So he looked for something to shelter it with. The only thing he could find was the discarded sole of a shoe. So he carefully placed the sole of this shoe on top of the satsa and he left. Then the next guy comes along and he sees the sole of this shoe sitting on top of the satsa and he thinks, man, someone just, this was so disrespectful. Someone just put this shoe on top of the satsa. How awful. So he removes the shoe. He thinks that's, so disrespectful to do. So he removes it. All 3 of these men had virtuous intentions. So even though the outer manifestation of their action looks different and looks contrary, all of them created positive merit through their action because they had a positive intention. If we engage in virtuous actions with our body, speech, and mind, it will antidote our non-virtuous actions and create happiness in our future. Togdo Tuku says, we need to consider carefully what is beneficial and how we can be of greatest service. We share the world with other human beings, so we must learn to avoid situations that we know will have a negative impact. We establish the intention not to harm others, and we constantly examine ourselves, making adjustments when necessary. If we see that something will not benefit, either temporarily or ultimately, we make a commitment not to do it. So when we contemplate our past conduct, that mountain of karmic seeds that are just waiting for the right conditions to grow, we may feel helpless. But it's said that the only good thing about karma is that it can be purified. So we're not helpless. We actually can purify our karma. And from now on, we can make better choices that will affect our future. His Holiness Penor Rinpoche says, "The reason we wander in samsara is that we experience the karmic results of our previous actions. And until we've purified all karmic obscurations, we won't be able to attain enlightenment. The Dharma is taught solely so that all beings can purify the karmic obscurations that they have gathered throughout countless lifetimes in order to attain perfect enlightenment. So instead of putting a lot of effort into trying to attain temporary happiness, it would be much better just to accumulate merit by engaging in virtuous actions." There's a story that illustrates how powerful the power of purification is. There was a man who lived in the time of the Buddha, and this man had received teachings from a charlatan, a fake guru. And this fake guru told him that in order to attain enlightenment, he had to kill 1,000 people. So the man diligently killed 999 people. And he cut a thumb from each of his victims and wore the thumbs as a garland around his neck. And at this point, by the time he had killed 999 people, understandably, no one would go close to this guy but his own mother. And so one day, unable to find his thousandth victim, he turned on his mother. And she realized she was in great danger, but she remembered that the omniscient, compassionate Buddha would respond to anyone that prayed to him. And so she began fervently praying for the Buddha to save her from her son. And the Buddha instantly appeared between her and her son. The son was delighted that the Buddha showed up because he didn't really want to kill his mom, and now he could kill the Buddha instead. But each time he tried to attack the Buddha moved further away. He would take one step towards the Buddha, and the Buddha would be further away. One step forward, the Buddha's more distant, just kept moving away. And finally the man asked, "How do you do that? I can't catch you. How do you do that?" It was like trying to catch a rainbow. The Buddha said, "I am enlightened. I have no karma, so you can't harm me. You have been terribly misled. Killing people will not liberate you from suffering. It will send you to hell. If you want to attain enlightenment, you must purify your karma." So the Buddha taught the man how to purify his karma. He taught him what is virtue, what is non-virtue, and how to clean up his act. And so the man changed his behavior. He did extensive purification practices, and in that very life he became an arhat, who is someone that has purified all of their karma and mental poisons. So no matter how badly you have acted in the past, you do have the ability to change, and you have the ability to purify the karma that you have accumulated. It's important to remember also that the great masters of the past and the great masters of the present, they weren't saints from the start. Everyone has had their journey. And the great masters of the future are messed up people just like us. We just haven't gotten there yet. Even the Buddha began his journey to enlightenment in the hell realms. The Buddha, this was in a previous lifetime, he was reborn in hell due to past negative actions. And he was in a situation where he and an old man were tied to a cart, being forced to pull a cart like oxen and being whipped. And his body was still young and strong, but the old man next to him was having a terrible time pulling this cart and was suffering terribly. And so he begged that, he developed this sense of compassion for this old man next to him that, I hope this old man can be free of his suffering. Like, may I take on this suffering instead of this old man? And he begged that he could pull the cart alone. And that the old man could be, released from that and that he could pull the cart alone. And with that wish, he was instantly killed and reborn in a better rebirth. And from there, he continued to make compassionate choices, to have little moments of compassion that spurred a positive action that led to other circumstances in which it was easier to have a compassionate thought and to create a positive action. And that just continued to go and go and go as he attained higher and higher rebirths and made better and better choices until eventually he was born as Prince Siddhartha and attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. But that whole chain of events began in the hell realms. So no matter how bad off you think you are, and no matter how terrible the actions you've committed in the past, or if you are suffering terribly from the actions you've committed in the past and you feel like there's no way through, just the smallest compassionate thought is the starting point to a beautiful journey that leads all the way to enlightenment. And the smallest little spark can be the start of that. No one is hopeless. We all have the power to change. Another story about this is of the great Lama Dodrupchen Rinpoche, who in a previous lifetime was a horse thief. And during one of his raids, he stole a pregnant mare. And as he made his escape, the mare was unable to keep up with the rest of the horses. And the thought occurred to him that, the owners might, maybe if the mare lagged behind, the owners would get to keep this horse and her colt. So he was furious at the idea that these people might get their horse back. And so he pulled out his sword and he sliced the mare's belly open, and the baby colt fell out. And as the mare lay there dying, she turned her head to look at her baby. And seeing her love, he suddenly felt great remorse. And he vowed never to harm another being again. So this thief decided to take up a spiritual practice. And he sold his horse and weapons. And with the money, he bought some tea and set out on a pilgrimage to central Tibet. And when he arrived in Lhasa, he made arrangements to sell the tea so that he could have money to make an offering to Jigme Lingpa, who he wanted to study with. But because of his past actions of stealing, the tea had been stolen. So he had nothing to sell. He had no way to get money for an offering. He had nothing to offer. Everything had been stolen from him. But Jigme Lingpa taught him anyway, and in that lifetime, he gained mastery over his mind. By seeing the fault of what he had done, by generating remorse, by committing not to commit that action again, and then by pursuing a path that actually changed his act. Negative karma can be purified by the practice of compassion and also through formal meditation techniques. One method involves the 4 powers of purification, which parallel the 4 steps that lead to the full ripening of karma. So the 4 steps that lead to full ripening are identifying the object, setting the intention, the actual action, and then the consequence of that action. And the 4 powers of purification mirror that. So the first power of purification is the power of support. So we can visualize in front of ourselves a manifestation of wisdom. In this tradition, we would usually visualize the Buddha Vajrasattva for a purification practice, but it could be any of the Buddhas. It could be the Buddha Tara or Guru Rinpoche. And if you're not Buddhist, you could visualize Allah or God or Jesus or Mother Mary, whatever manifestation of wisdom works for you. And this manifestation of wisdom will be the witness to our purification. The second power involves acknowledging and taking responsibility for what we've done without making any excuses. So in the presence of this wisdom being, with deep regret, we confess all of our harmful actions of body, speech, and mind, from all of the actions from this life, from all of our past lives, whether we remember it or not. Whether it was intentional or accidental, doesn't matter. Just confess all of it. We need to have sincere remorse for our actions when we do this, like as if we had carelessly drunk a glass of water and then discovered that it was actually arsenic. If you think of the mindset you would be in, going to the emergency room, confessing to the doctor that you had accidentally ingested arsenic, I mean, the deep remorse you would feel. You would be out of your mind. You'd be thinking, like counting down the minutes, this is going to kill me. This is terrible what I did. I can't believe I did this. And you would wish from the bottom of your heart that you had not drank that arsenic. So it should be like that. We should think like that. I can't believe I did that. How could I have caused harm to someone? I confess this, and I will absolutely never do that again. And resolving never to repeat what we've done again, that is the third power. Any action motivated by anger, attachment, ignorance, pride, or jealousy will have serious repercussions. So we have to commit not only to never repeat that negative action again, but we have to commit to actually pull out those negative poisons by the root. Those negative poisons are what caused us to create the negative action. And so if we want to truly abstain from that action, we would have to pull out the causes that lead us to that action, which are the mental poisons. It doesn't work to purify our actions in a superficial way, thinking like, oh, if I just do it again, I'll purify it again. This isn't like promising your parents that you're never going to play ball in the house again. If you're like your fingers crossed behind your back, yes, Mom, I'll never do it again. It's not like that. There's no external authority for you to trick. Karma is very exacting. If you have true remorse, this process works. But if you don't truly remorse, then you're not really doing it. So we have to sincerely commit to turning away from the causes of suffering once or for all, truly abandoning the mental poisons that cause us to act in ways that harm others. The fourth power is the actual purification. And so the wisdom being in front of us responds to our remorse. They respond to our commitment to never do this again. And they respond with an outpouring of love and compassion in the form of light or nectar that pours into the crown of our head and washes through us, purifying all of our negative karma. You can enhance this practice by reciting a mantra or a prayer associated with the wisdom being that you're visualizing. So if you're visualizing Vajrasattva, you can be reciting Om Benzer Sato Hong, or if you're visualizing Tara, you could recite Om Tara Tu Tara Tre So Ha. And if you're not Buddhist and if you have a wisdom being like Mother Mary, perhaps you would recite Hail Marys. I don't know, but anyone can do this practice, whether you are Buddhist or not. Chagda Tuku has taught that you can do this practice with whatever wisdom being is your higher power. So through the method of these four powers, we can purify the negative karma and negative habits that we have accumulated throughout all of our past lives. And when our mental poisons appear and we commit more harmful actions, then we continue to confess them and we continue to purify them until we no longer have the propensity to harm others. It's important to purify karma daily. At the end of the day, we can look back and recall the moments when we gossiped or we didn't bite our tongue, we let anger get the best of us, and we lashed out at someone. At the end of the day, we can think about that and regret our mistakes, regret our lack of control, and we can purify these actions using the four powers. And then we can recall the virtuous actions that we did that day, not to make ourselves prideful, but so that we can dedicate the merit of those actions for the benefit of others. So we can think, by this merit, may all of the causes of suffering for all beings be eliminated, and may they realize their true nature. Chagda Tuku says, to the extent that we do this, our own mind will become pure. To the extent that our mind is pure, we will be able to benefit others. Through the four powers, we can purify karma before it ripens, which means that we won't suffer so much from the effects of our actions or continue to perpetuate those negative habits. But purification is also inherent in the ripening process itself. So through our current suffering, we repay our karmic debts. We might think that becoming a spiritual practitioner means now you should be free of suffering. I make an effort to be a good person. I pray. Why am I sick? Why did I catch the flu? I do good things all the time. But it doesn't work that way. Sickness or a long chronic illness or a slow death can actually exhaust karma that would otherwise manifest in an even more severe form, like lifetimes in the hell realms. His Holiness Penor Rinpoche says, Dharma is about the way you perceive things, and everything can be made meaningful if you transform your way of thinking. For example, when things don't go the way you want, and obstacles occur at home, at your job, and so forth, if you just keep worrying about it, there will be no benefit whatsoever. It's useless to worry about such problems. Instead, you should pray, by my experiencing these difficulties, may the hardships of all beings be ripened, so that their obscurations will be purified, and their wishes fulfilled. In this way, even hardships can be made meaningful and benefit others. Sometimes engaging in virtuous actions actually seems to stir up suffering, and we may feel discouraged. You might go on retreat and suffer illness after illness, and think, boy, all this praying is bad luck. But purifying karma is kind of like washing dirty clothes. So when you when you first put the clothes in the water and start scrubbing, all the dirt starts to come out and the water looks really dirty. It doesn't mean you're dirtying the clothes. It means the dirt's coming out of the clothes. So the process of purification draws out the dirt so it can be cleansed away. And sometimes we may try to engage in this process of using the 4 powers, but our remorse is not strong enough to counter our bad habits. For instance, if you have a great propensity towards killing out of anger, developed over lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, it's a very, very, very strong habit, and one day you vow never to kill again. It works for a bit, but then you have a dispute with someone, and maybe you try to make peace, you try to talk it through, but they just laugh at you and they insult you, and you wear out the limited patience that you have developed, and you snap, and you get angry, and you kill them. Well, that's because you've created a very, very, very strong habit of anger, and you've not yet created a very strong habit of patience. So even though you saw it, you vowed not to do it again, your remorse wasn't strong enough to truly counter that habit. Contemplating karma and developing an awareness of our negative propensities, we can see that in a way, we're all kind of like recovering alcoholics, in that we all have habits that we don't yet have control over. And even if we know that these habits make us miserable, we can't seem to stop ourselves from perpetuating them. People say that sometimes you have to hit rock bottom in order to change. You know, when you're recovering from an addiction, you have to hit rock bottom in order to change. And that's often true because without that wake-up call, you don't have strong enough remorse to truly, from the depths of your heart, from the marrow of your bones, truly commit to change. But even if you fall off the wagon 1,000,000 times, just keep coming back and keep applying the 4 powers of purification. You can't give up. It truly does work if you work it. And you fall down 1,000 times and get up 1,001, but it will work. And to be helpful also, these thoughts of keeping in mind our negative karmic propensities in this way can also be helpful to have self-compassion through this process, because you can remember that, you know, when you do fail, when you make a vow not to do something again and then you fail and you do succumb to that negative habit and you do it again, you can have some compassion for yourself that is because of this very strong habit that you built up over lifetime after lifetime after lifetime when you didn't know better. But now you do know better, and you're going to help yourself, and you're going to choose to make different actions in the future. But you can have some compassion for yourself, that it's not that you're just a loser or a failure or something like that. It's actually that you have this very, very, very strong momentum that you are now trying to change the direction of. So the last thing I want to cover is how we make so much karma in the first place. If the mind perceives an object, and this object could be anything. It could be a glass of water, it could be a dog, it could be a passing thought. If the mind perceives that object and remains in a state of relaxation, we won't make any karma. But usually our mind becomes involved with that outer stimulus. We believe the object we perceive to be inherently real, and then we respond to it with attachment or aversion. We react with our body, speech, or mind. And this process happens so quickly, we don't even notice it usually. We just reach for the glass of water, or we pet the dog, or we just respond to whatever thought is in our head. We blurt out whatever we thought we would say. And we're totally unaware of this reactive cycle that we're perpetuating, of identifying the object and thinking it to be real, and then responding to it with attachment or aversion, then reacting to it. And that's the whole chain of events happens very, very fast. And we do this in every single moment of our existence, lifetime after lifetime. So you can imagine, if we think back to that book we wrote that we hid in an attic, of all of our thoughts we've ever had, if you think of this chain of events happening in every single moment, before any word comes out of your mouth, before you reach for something, before you open a door, think of all of the times that you have set this chain of events into motion, seeing something, reacting to it. That book is a very large book, and we have created a lot of karma. And in every moment, we create more, and we consistently create more. Chagdatuku says, in each instant, we have the potential either to awaken or to become lost in the movement of ordinary mind. We always have that choice. Ultimately, the mind never moves from its true nature, but its apparent motion leads us to identify with the ordinary mind without awareness of its nature. That nature is not a void, like a blackboard that has been erased. With its rich potential for expression, it is the basis for all phenomena. Everything arises from it. When we stabilize the realization that the unlimited expression of mind is never separate from its nature, we stop creating karma. And so, as usual, we are going to end this class with a brief meditation to stabilize our minds. So we'll never be able to work with our hatred, greed, ignorance, jealousy, or pride if we don't have enough stability and spaciousness to see what is in our minds, to see how we're acting, and to see what the result of that will be. We have to have a little bit of space in our minds in order to be able to do that. We have to be able to step back from our own minds long enough to be able to watch these reactions and see where they come from instead of just being swept away by them and reacting to them. So this meditation is from Jetsuma's book, Stabilizing the Mind. And this is a simple meditation. You can do this meditation anytime. All we're going to do is watch our breath. So you can just sit comfortably with your back straight. Well, now I'm the one getting texts. Set my timer for this. Okay, so you can sit comfortably with your back straight. You can just place your hands in your lap, gently relax, and allow yourself to relax completely and breathe normally. We're going to put a very light attention on our breathing. Don't try to control your breath at all. Just breathe naturally and put the most gossamer thin attention on your breath. It's like taking your pulse. You don't put any pressure on it, you just observe it. Your attention should be like a feather, gently riding on the surface of your breath. So our egos are not going to want us to meditate, and they're going to try to distract us. But no matter what thoughts pop up, you don't have to think it's a good thought or a bad thought. Just drop it. Doesn't matter what thoughts come through your head. Just drop them and return to your breath. So we'll begin, and we'll meditate for just 5 minutes. So if it's difficult to sit there, just remember this is only 5 minutes, even if it feels like an eternity. So just keep the most gossamer thin attention on your breath, and just keep coming back to that breath. And now we'll just do a short dedication.